Hey everybody. Hey everybody, it's me, Dr. Phil. Um, sorry, I just had a Simpsons moment in my head. Ah, so it's Conan stuff. I put this page aside. This is page 17. I'm in the early 20s right now of the 48 page story. I have to double check. So I put the page aside with the idea that I think even the first page I worked on stream, I had done all the panel borders and I actually did some work. So here's a page. I'm gonna let. Hey, thank you, Anzen. Yeah, thank you. I had a lovely, lovely birthday. Um, I didn't really. Friday the weather was so bad here. I think you know that I had to cancel my social plans around my birthday. I was going to play some games with Jim Zub and Stacey King and maybe some other friends. But I mean, the snow was blowing so bad up here. I was hearing car accidents from my apartment with the windows closed. I mean, there was a really bad one on the highway off ramp. I don't even, I might have made the news, but I had a wonderfully chill day with my son. We had we had a wonderful red velvet cake. Um, so that was really lovely. Oh, and you know what? I was looking through this earlier. Um, this is a birthday gift he got me. This has been in my Amazon wish list for quite some time. I just couldn't, justify buying it because I'm not doing anything overtly H.P. Lovecraft right now. Um, but this is a beautiful. It's more of an art book as much as a guide. I had, to be honest, it reminds me of an idea I started working on a while ago, and I realized it was just too obscure. If you remember, like Ryan Portfleet's Gnomes or the Fairies books, back from I think they're from the 70s. They had these wonderful, like heavily, beautifully illustrated books talking about essentially alien world. So I wanted to do a book like that about the Dreamlands, and I wanted to do some like crusty old, very British or old school explorers, and kind of like a men's club like they used to have. And they were just exchanging stories about their various misadventures dealing with um, stuff from the Dreamlands or you know Lang or any of the other locations that Lovecraft created. It would have been fun. I was really excited. I was actually thinking of how could I do a heavily illustrated thing like that as a comic first, and I realized it'd be too much prose in it. A lot of people would pick it up, look at it, go, oh, a couple nice pictures, and put it back down because I find a lot of comic readers, as soon as you put some prose in a comic book, they shut down or they won't buy it. They'll if there's like afterthought prose, like in the back material, like Ahoy does, they'll go back and read it. But when they open a comic book, they want to read a comic book. But yeah, so this book is absolutely gorgeous. Oh wow, when I first looked through it, I didn't see the placeholder. So it's a beautiful book. It's art in every page. It's quite lovely. A nice little index or reference list where they drew all their material. They got like I guess this is a scale comparison. A study of mythos morphology. So maybe that's not size. I mean, I'm thinking Azathoth. That's supposed to be Azathoth. It would be a lot bigger. So I guess not the scale. It's just kind of indicating the different sizes. Zoog. But yeah, beautiful book. Highly recommend it if you're into Lovecraft stuff like I am. And a little, I meant to talk about this last week, but I forgot about it. I'm a big fan of comic artist Stuart Immonen, and he did this weird thing on Instagram for a while before he shut it down. Really, I mean, there's almost no communication from him I've ever seen, where he talks about like what things they're going to do. He just like when he said he was retiring from superhero comics, he was basically saying he was retiring from monthly comics, not comics in general. And he had to go back and correct it when it was misreported. So this is a book called Grass of Parnassus. It is a beautiful, beautiful book. I'm this far into it, and I still have no clue what the hell it's about. I mean, it's all taking place in, I guess, a space station called Grass of Parnassus. That's in for that. But the art and the coloring is beautiful. Like this was on Instagram, serialized on Instagram. I think there's a whole bunch of new art because there's as I'm going through them, there's stuff I never saw on the Instagram page. And it's beautiful little square drawings or massive spreads. I'm going to flip ahead, might spoil it for myself. And this was, I mean, it's a hardcover book, beautiful hardcover book by one of the top artists in the industry. And it comes in this beautiful hardcover. Let me put my place mark because this one didn't come with a ribbon. And it comes in a beautiful slipcase, which is good because in shipping it got damaged. But I don't really worry with that too much about that. But this was like, I think less than $30. I can't remember how much it was, but it was less than $30 for like that thick a graphic novel. Now, granted, it might be a terrible story at the end of it. I love his art, but occasionally I'm really disappointed with the actual story result. Red King and Russian Olive, I think, was another one I read. And it was wonderful up until the end where it literally, like when I was talking about prose, turned into prose. And then as I was reading, I just went, wow, no, it's not paying off effectively for me. Other people might like it, but for me, it didn't work as a reader. But I just love the sense of design. I love this. I don't know if he did this or someone else did because I've seen no press over this at all. But I got this for myself. And that's because, Christmas and my birthday. And these arrived. This is from Severed Books or their Severed Toys line. It's an edition of 500 from severedbooks.com. 2023. I guess that's when they designed it, but it's out. It just came out now, and I don't even know if it's for sale. I think it's available for pre-order on the website. Let me open this. Where's a knife? I gotta have a knife somewhere. I got some. I got an X-Acto knife here somewhere. That I was just using earlier today. So that probably means I put it down somewhere and won't be able to find it. So let me find a different knife. This is the way I live. So yeah, beautiful little box. These are little wooden minis. They're doing a whole bunch of them. And some of them look really, I kind of volunteered myself to do a set of Vikings if they ever want a small party. Well, let me pull all these out so you guys can see them. And the reproduction of my artwork on these tiny, tiny little wooden minis. I'm going to leave them in the bag for this. Look at that. See if I can get that close without a glare. Post this on social media if you want better pictures of them. I just love it. Oh, the flying witch is upside down. And so is the crow witch. There we go. Yeah, so these are beautiful. My first licensed product. Yay! So I'm ecstatic with these. And yeah, and I hope they sell out because I'd hate to think that they printed up 500 of these and they only sell like 10 or something. So feel free to go to Severed Books and buy these. They're like $15 US, I think. That's what he told me. I got like a box of them. So what I'm going to do is my next convention, I'm going to have these for sale. Now, my next connection is not going to be a traditional convention. I'm working with some people developing something a little new. And it's going to be online where I'm teasing to you guys because you're here watching. But so this will be available online in the Artist Alley online shopping feature we'll be doing. So yeah. So that's all great. I just like sharing stuff with you guys. All right. So this page, this is after I think the page I drew was Conan crawling through the mud and then sliding down to this pit with all these trees in it, this crater here. So he's just landing in a crater. You can see the trees as I light boxing and stuff. There's Conan exhausted. Black panel sound effects. Conan hearing some stuff. Black panel more sound effects. Getting ready for trouble. Okay, it also leaves room for Jim to do captions if he wants to, because Conan's not talking; he's just experiencing stuff. So, hang on, hold on, chat. Here we go. Yeah. Hellborn magazine. I've never heard of that. I'm gonna have to look that up after this session. Parnassus does look interesting. I'm gonna. All right, cool. Yeah, it's if any of you guys seen my first real video on my channel is C2E2 at home. That's where I got the idea to get rope some other people into helping me build this thing. And I just did commissions, but we're making plans. It's going to be a little bit bigger. It's going to be more people involved. Not a lot. We're going to start small. But I'm really excited to see what we can do if we have a specific platform to mimic Artist Alley for people who can't get to conventions or who won't go to conventions that we might have been going to. Plus, I'm not really enjoying conventions as much as I used to. So I think that I'd much rather do store signings and do more of them, like do a road trip and do a bunch of different stores when something comes out, and meet more people that way. Because at a convention, it's like you don't really get to talk to people. Store signings are always smaller, a lot more interesting. Cool. All right. So looks like there's about 5 people here. Yay, 5 people. Now, this is a really big panel. I can start on this, but with my usual hour on a Sunday night, might not get too far in this. These heads seem kind of small. So I have a gut feeling if you guys had your druthers, you'd want me to start with this panel. The last panel with Conan all grimacy. I just noticed that the eyes are a little uneven. I'm going to fix that before I ink it. And so what I'll do is I'll show you how I do my panel borders, and then I'll start inking, and I'll go till about 8ish or so. I know, I tend to go a little over 8, so it's over an hour. It's over an hour of me every week. I mean, sometimes a little much to take, so I figured you guys spread it out. So yeah, before I ink the panel borders, first off, because I went back over, I drew everything on the light box, or traced everything out from my initial looser sketches. A light box with a 2H pencil, which is something I forgot is what I used to do with the light box when I used it. It made the initial lines less dark and allowed me to go over with my HB or B and draw them a little more accurately, and also less of the graphite sitting there under the ink lines and everything. There we go. That was a quick fix. That was a very quick fix. All right. So what I usually use, let's see if I can find it. I either use a standard Sharpie paint marker. They use Post-it paint or gouache. But I also have, I'm looking, because I was working on something else. All my pens are everywhere right now, which is typical of my studio. I was doing some tidying, and then I started working, and everything became a mess again almost immediately. I have not the finest black. I don't want to have to dig it a new one. It's starting to run low anyway, so I might be better to start with a new one. All right. So what I'm going to do. Where my Posca is, baby. We'll start up with a Posca. Here's my box of Poscas. So this is the 0.9 to 1.3 millimeter black paint pen. Let's give me a piece of scrap paper. No, that doesn't qualify. Oh, here we go. I always have a piece of paper to make sure my stamps aren't too dirty, or I'm testing a white paint. So you can see, if you've never used a Posca or a paint marker, they somehow they manage to seal the paint in the marker. And I think the first time you push this in, it punctures it. So it's probably an incredibly thin membrane, but since it's got a cap on it, it can shake around, nothing would happen. But to get the pigment down through the felt tip, or I assume it's felt, you got to tap it. Sometimes I hold it, and nope. This is a great sound, isn't it? Oh, here we go. There you go. See that? It's almost completely, well, it's about 50% black now, isn't it? Oh, it's bleeding in there a bit. So I'll just do this. Black. There we go. So I love Posca. I will still use India ink where it's best used. I just like having more options for laying down black. One of my favorite parts about the Posca, Molotow, and Sharpie paint markers is how matte their black is. It's a little jarring in the original sometimes. You see like this incredibly flat black dark area right next to my comparatively grayer pens. But they scan a lot better. They clean up a lot easier with the really nice soft, matte black, not soft. Let me get that line a little thicker. Ink's not flowing at full speed. There we go. I think I talked about this before. I couldn't find set square, an affordable set square at this size. It's big enough to cover the whole page. So I usually have this for that stuff, and it's just shy most of the time. Luckily, I transferred this lower down the page, so I could have used this. But I picked this up dirt cheap. I think maybe $15 on Amazon. Yes, evil Amazon, and it's heavy. It's metal. It's a little bit more stable than when I'm using two set squares to draw like perpendicular lines. So I'm actually quite fond of it. I might give it a back. I might pick up some cork and rubber cement it onto the back to lift it a bit, give me a bit of a bevel. Because this is actually, I believe it's a carpenter's square. It's going to be solid black so I can get the ink flowing a little bit better. There we go. Nice line. Yeah, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to ink the big angry face, and time allowing, I'll go ink the two smaller faces in that order. I'll start with the completely exhausted face, and then the, I heard a noise. Did you hear a noise face? So that'll be fun. A lot of times I will freehand these lines, panel borders. I did that when I was working on Second Coming finished art. Oh, there we go. It wobbled a bit. So I wasn't holding it securely enough down. There we go. That's better. This will be cropped off anyway, so I can do all sorts of things. I could draw a little penis on the edge, and no one would care. Not that I'm going to draw. Oh my God, I got a story. About penises on comic art. So I'm not going to say who did it, but it's one of my favorite artists who at the time was inking Dale Keown. I did a short Dale Keown story and just penciled this before I was inking myself. I had inked myself a few times, but I was nowhere near as good as professional inkers. I still may not be. Oh, look, I bounced again. So we sent this, I think it's a 10-page story, off to get inked. And a few weeks later, I get a phone call from Dale because they physically, this is back when they FedExed artwork, so everything could be assembled that way. There weren't a lot of like just scanning and uploading the various like Dropbox or some of the other ones. So Dale calls me. This is back before he was an alcoholic and a Comicsgate idiot. And he's really, really like nervous. And apparently, someone in the studio of this inker everywhere they could with a ballpoint. So regular ink didn't cover it up because it dug into the pages. They drew penises everywhere they could, and every area where there was like a crotch on a male character, like penises, like all the way through all 8 pages. I think I threw away the originals because of it. No way they could sell, I think. Um, and on top of that, the inking wasn't really, it didn't mesh with my style at all. So it was a weird thing where I'm looking at this artwork going, okay, stylistically, the inking didn't work. And I'm pretty sure the artist would agree. I'm kind of friendly with him now. But we never really talked about that. I mean, we kind of in passing, like years ago, kind of laughed about it, but we never actually talked about how we didn't gel. Because he's oh, there's my, I put it down exactly where I put the other one. I just didn't see it. So I got two started. All right, make a point of killing them off. Yeah, it's must gave been a fan. I'm not sure I get that, Anson. Oh, must have been a fan. No, I was nobody. This is like '90s, back when I just got off of New Warriors, and I was like, just starting to work with Dale on Pitt and for a bunch of things. Oh, I barely can see that. I might have to tape this up, or I could just hold this up. It's not staying. I might have to tape it. My hands are covered in graphite from the other page. I think they are. I'm seeing little bits of graphite smudge everywhere. So I thought I washed my hands after I finished inking. So that's nicely centered, isn't it? Now I'll turn this over so it doesn't distract. So yeah, there's trees. This is like almost like a crater or a sinkhole that kind of didn't go all the way down. And it's forested. So it's just a cool little sequence to put all the stuff, all the action for this. Most of this comic happens here. Yeah, so it was really funny. And because the style didn't match, what we ended up doing is making really, really, really dark copies of my original pencils. And then I went over them because the deadline was like right on top of us too. I went over them with some ink to make them work as comics pages. So they were really scratchy and rough at a time when I wasn't really aiming to be scratchy and rough. Now, of course, I do that on purpose. This is too fine for this page. So that was industry stories, man. Industry stories. A little highlight there. It's a very dark sequence, so I don't think as light as Conan's eyes usually are. I'm going to make them a little darker because they're not going to catch much in the way of light. See. He wasn't honestly. He's a really good anchor, but I didn't think he was that great on Dale either. Dale was really really fond of the work and used him for a while, but I found it's one of those weird things. He's incredibly technically proficient on the pages. I mean, every line went down was beautiful in and of itself. It just wasn't a good match to my mind for what Dale was doing. When you think about the people that were inking Dale at Marvel, then early issues of Pitt, Mark Farmer, Joseph Rubenstein, and a couple other guys. I think he got Scott Williams at one point too, but Scott was like too busy with all the Jim Lee stuff. Yeah, it was certainly an experience, man. Certainly an experience. Um, was that the first story I wrote professionally? No, I had written stuff for Marvel Was it the Invisible Man come before or after that? I'm having a hard time remembering. I had written a full script and was drawing in the midst of drawing an adaptation of the Universal Monsters Invisible Man for Dark Horse, and apart from Creature from the Black Lagoon by Arthur Adams, apparently everything severely underperformed. So they killed it, even though like a whole bunch of people were. What sucked is I was jumping around just inking all the fun shit. I had around 30 pages penciled and like finished penciled, and I was going through making corrections and everything. And when the kid said, "Well, send in all the ink pages," and I went, all I got are these pencil pages, and they're like, "Oh, we'll cut you a deal." I think they gave me a decent kill fee, if I remember correctly. It's hard to think back to way back then. Um, they really liked. I made some changes to the film story because comics. Um, uh, I really liked my ending. It was essentially Invisible Man dies at the end of the movie, if you remember that. Um, am I slotted for a certain issue? Yes, this is issue 2 of Savage Sword of Conan. If I remember correctly, Savage Sword of Conan first issue is coming in February. This issue will be out in April. I just got news. Apparently, my first Conan work for Heroic Titan will be one of the covers for issue 10. And I think 6 just shipped. So in 4 months, my first Conan cover is going to be out, which I'm really excited. Which also means I think it should be solicited. So I should be able to share it with you guys in the not too distant, which is something I'm happy. I'm looking forward to. It's great. Jim came up with a great story. I'm like dancing around. I don't want to spoil stuff. I mean, I know it's almost impossible to not spoil stuff when doing artwork online from the story, but I think I might have shared the creature designs, but none of the artwork with them. There's a great little fight sequence where all these monsters attack this caravan that Conan's a guard on, and it was so fun drawing that. Exhausting. Those pages took forever. Here we go. Conan's going to look a little older here because he's got a broken leg. He's got a massive wound in his other leg, and he's got a broken arm. We're really putting Conan through it here. I don't know if any comics ever like given Conan injuries to the scale that we have here. I know Howard didn't in the originals, but we really we're Jim kind of was leaning into it, and then I said, well, we could push it a little farther because I mean, Jim's really about going back to the level of savagery that's just there in Conan. I mean, if you're reading the monthly book, I mean, the decapitations and the brutality of the fights are just incredible. Roberto and oh god, I'm blanking on his name. He's so good, a British artist, Doug Brathwaite, are doing such good work. I'm just so excited. So it was kind of like we just kind of started pushing each other for how much damage Conan's experiencing, and the legs issue was like there, like that was already there for Jim because we need a reason for story reason. We need a reason for Conan to stay in this area for a while as he heals. So the legs getting messed up. Like if he had a broken arm, he'd take off. And it's just so breaking his arm was me. We do worse things to him. I'm gonna be trying sneaking in some stuff as I go along with as he recovers in this little forest here, little wood, copse of trees. God, I love drawing Conan. It's a hard thing. I'm moving away from work for hire stuff, but I'm thinking it's like unless it's like it needs two things. It needs a writer I really want to work with, or it's got to be a good story with a character I really want to draw. Which I mean, there's two things happening here in Conan. Of course, I mean, I'm working with Jim, who's like, honestly, I like Kurt Busiek's run. I despise the Brian Wood run. It just Brian Wood was just a terrible match for Conan over at Dark Horse. I know some people liked it, but I just found it. It felt like he didn't get either Howard or the character. He was just doing his own thing, which I think he was probably encouraged to do because I mean Conan sales at Dark Horse were starting to tank after Kurt left and Carrie left, who's back doing a story for Savage Sword. He's doing a Conan story for Savage Sword, so I think he might be in the first issue. I can't remember. Um, but yeah, so I mean, Heroic Titan here, and I think it's mostly the heroic people. But I mean, they're the guys who own Conan, Heroic Signatures. I think Conan's actually owned by a company called Cabinet right now, and Heroic Signatures is a division of Cabinet. That's how I understand it. I could be wrong. But the Heroic Signatures people, I mean, with the initial editor hire, they hired like this great, I mean, he's essentially a bulldog protecting Conan like crazy. Um, and all the stuff, all the decisions they're making. I mean, um, even doing like a new beautiful edition of the Hyborian map, which I now have. I'm going to get it framed on one of those like wooden boards, so it's protected forever, and then hang it up here in my studio. I'm really looking forward to that. And I need to use a finer pen. So I'll use. I mean, I'm drawing most of the stuff with the 3 because it's flowing really lovely here. I'm going to go back and do some like a lot of the razor stubble with the 1, and maybe the gums. Again, black and white book. I am going to be going back in and doing some digital watercolors to make it look a little bit more like the classic Savage Sword. But we're leaving 2 editions so we can possibly do a color, because this is going to be like a 44, 48 page book, which would be a European album. And so I hopefully they'd let me color it. So we're going to have like just pure pen and ink. It's also really dirty food crawling through all that mud. I'm going to be doing some brush work with the hair here as well. But I just want to get some initial fine hairs because everything's wet still. You just finished crawling through the mud. Yeah. So I mean, if like Brian Hill and I finally get through to DC and they go, yeah, we'll let you do Batman, because I think Brian Hill and I would do an amazing Batman project. But DC's got problems right now anyway. But I'd do that. But just anybody with Batman, no. I mean, I like Batman. I don't like him enough just to do a Batman book because I want to do Batman. It would have to be a good Batman book. I'd want a shot at doing a story that people want to keep in print for a long time. That would be important to me. And Jim wants to do his Batman story. That would be awesome. He did this great fantasy Batman thing at DC. And then they didn't bring him back to do more of the fantasy Batman stuff they're doing, which is seems pretty fucked up to me. How's that looking, guys? This is great. On my laptop, I've got a laptop just for psoriasis. Put a laptop, and when I'm streaming through YouTube, it's flipped. It's the mirror image. So normally, because I have a mirror to that side of my studio, so I can do expressions really quickly and use myself as a reference for the expressions, or I can like just hold the work up towards the mirror and I get an immediate reduction, so I see how everything's coming together. It's when it's closer to print size. But also it's great. It makes when the eyes are wrong pop out. All that great stuff. Not really much would go after that. But yeah, so it's like I think it's going to be a part right now for the foreseeable. I either have to own it, in some portion of it, like with Second Coming. It has to be something like a great deal, like where I'm working with Jim and doing Conan, because Conan, Um, I might let the shadow, as I'm thinking about this, because he's in this dark thing and he's actually under a fallen tree. That's where this is going to be like a root bulb. So there's going to be a concavity around here, and this tree's coming over and it's like bending down. So he's going to get to harvest a lot of the sticks to help build shelter and stuff. But he's also got this big thick trunk lying on the ground directly above him, so it gives kind of like a very almost like a built a natural occurring lean-to. So there's shadows here. Can you see what I'm doing? No, you can't see what I'm doing because I'm way up there. Let me show you right now. I'm talking about up here. So this is the tree. This is the root ball that kind of flipped up, so it just ripped out of the ground. But it's like lying in the ground here. This is a big tree here, so you can only see it. Oh, I can draw this side of the tree. Let me draw it now. There we go. So the tree continues through there. Lots of branches like curving around everywhere. So it's going to provide him some cover. He's going to harvest branches for like little fires and survival stuff and everything. But because he's actually in the shadow of this and the sun is just starting to rise as this scene starts after all that pitch black rainfall. So I could easily just shadow merge Conan's head there, and here into like solid black and then have textures for like the mud underneath it. Just want to share the thinking process. I mean, it's one thing just to watch me draw, but I think some of you guys kind of want to hear me talk about what I'm thinking about when I'm making these decisions. So that's why I do that. If you want me to shut up and just draw, I can do that too. God, there's a part of me that would just love to do black and white. I love coloring, but I also just love black and white art. So there's really is a part of me that would like just say, yeah, I could just do. I mean, as I'm working on the witches, I might do the witch comics in black and white as well, because all the witch art so far is in black and white. But I have a feeling that would like significantly hurt um, the potential audience for the book, especially if it does get to go into the direct market. So I might have to just color the witches for commercial considerations. Because I really do want as many people to buy the witches comic as possible, either through Zoop, because that's where I'm going to do it, or if we do actually end up getting a direct market handler or a distributor. But yeah, so this is intended to be black and white, so I can go crazy with my stupid ass too many lines. That's kind of like a running joke with a lot of my friends. It's like, how many lines did you use for that? And it's like all of them. Um, Trying to remember who first. I didn't come up with that. A friend of mine came up with that. He was looking at a page I drew. It had rain on it actually, so there's that. And he goes, "Oh my God, you used all the lines." So that was that made me laugh my ass off. Just getting a gradated hatch down so I can have a nice. Hang on. Okay, it's still working. No ink was coming out there for a second. Checking here. I appreciate that, guy. Zuggernaut. Oh, I love that name. Zuggernaut. Oh, wow. Watching a huge screen, typing on the phone. Wow. Thank you. I'm happy you like hearing me babble. Yeah, I've been streaming. God, when did I start? So I did the C2E2 in I think April of last year, and I knew I wanted to do it monthly. So, but I had to clear time and make sure that I could start and just keep going. So I think I'd have to go into analytics, but I think my first video was a pirate drawing. Friends pirate character from a video game. He commissioned me to draw it. And so the first few sessions, I did commissions only, and I just did the whole commissions during the stream. Yeah, so that was for a bit. Then I did some actual work during the streams. Let's get some more, just a bit of a shadow bend right in here. Yeah, so I've been streaming for, now it's going to bother me. I'm going to have to look it up because if I don't know, I don't know. Let me go to use my desktop here, not my laptop, because I don't want to mess up that.
Who's the most formidable debate opponent that you have had in your video?
There you go. Accidentally clicked on something and it opened. Analytics, they'll probably tell me what month. Let's go for a year instead of 28 days. So I started the Sunday night streams in June 4th. So I drew a Conan X. I forgot about that. It was just a pirate character. The character was from Conan Exiles, the video game. And so he sent me some reference of that character. And it was really fun. So I drew this sexy Asian pirate chick. And from one of my Patreon supporters, which is, you want to support me on Patreon, I won't say no. It's only $1 a month. And you get to see a whole bunch of behind the scenes stuff of what I do. And yeah, so that's that. There's that. Okay, is that getting okay? I'm probably gonna use a brush in the darker areas here and then go back with line after. But for no 05. Do I want to use a marker? I could use a 01. Here we go. I'm gonna use a 01. I think I've talked about these before. These are I love liquid ink in a pen. This is liquid ink in a felt tip marker. Rotring Tickies. I love these. They go through the ink pretty fast because markers. But a little bit of shadow coming down there. Let the teeth disappear. Yeah, so the ink flows really nice. This is, in my experience, better than I used to use either Pigma, which are great markers, or have I used them all up? Oh, here we go. Okay, or Faber-Castell's Pitt Artist Pens, which are also nice. But the ink is in a felt holder here, so the ink you can. And this one's dried out, so I can't show you. But this doesn't flow nearly as well as the liquid ink that goes through this chamber here to feed to the felt tip. The one downside, I really, really like the 01. And since when they come, you can almost see that can it in focus? I don't know. But the felt tips almost push back into the ferrule. And I've only noticed it with the 01s, like the super fine ones I use. So it shortens the life I can use them for. But honestly, I like using these so much that I'm willing to put up with that. So these are my favorite tools. And just because there's always someone new watching a video. So the ball points, the really nice ball points are OHTO graphic liners. I use 005, 01, and 03. Those are my three go-to for these for most of my line work. And I have Rotring Tickies in 01, 03, 05. I have a handful of 8s left. I got to buy more. There's one. I think this might be my last 08. And these are really good for like chunky lines. I'll draw into some hair here. And in terms of markers, you don't get this type of like line flow from any markers in my experience other than these. So I love these. I actually order them from a great website. If you're in Canada and you want art supplies and you used to use jet pens, which for a long time was my favorite place to get art supplies, then they switched over to UPS, and UPS, when shipping to Canada, always hits this massive duty on everything. So screw UPS. But then I discovered Cult Pens, which is in the UK. And if you order a minimum, I think it's like $120, international shipping's free. And so I order usually about once a year. I think at the rate I'm going, midsummer, I'll probably place another order with Cult Pens. I'll need to replace. I don't know that I need 08s to make an order just for them because I like doing a really big order. But when I make the order this summer, I will be ordering a couple of boxes of 08s, even though I don't use them nearly as much. I also get these from Jet Pens. These are my, look at that, I got some ink in my hands, probably from, I don't like that on my hands while I'm working. I got some wipes around here somewhere. I do. So, you know what? It's a Lysol wipe, but it'll have to do. Get that ink off my hands no time at all. There we go. Then I'll wash my hands after, so I'm not like leaving residual bleach on my hands. Got to get that stuff off. So Derek Robertson of New Warriors and The Boys and Happy and so many great projects. We were talking, and he was talking about these uni pin pens, fine line brush tip markers. And I like them a lot. They're great because I can actually get like really, really, really like fine line work. You probably can't even see the lines here. And it's a little bit more organic than either the Otos or the Rotrings. It also has a dry brush because this is also just the fact I can do this here. See the way it kind of goes from dark to like fades as it dry brushes? That's because the ink doesn't flow as fast as in the Rotring Tickies. It's the ink is in a foam tube inside the marker. But so short of using a real brush, which I generally use, I was using it earlier. So again, like I said earlier, I probably put it in the wrong spot before. Oh, here it is. I believe it's a Kuretake real bristle brush pen, fountain pen feed. So it uses real sable bristles, and I just refill the cartridge. I have a couple of like the actual designed refilling cartridges, the one that actually they feed from your ink supply. But what I like to do, hang on, keep it open until this wears out, till the seal wears out with the standard carbon cartridge that goes in. I take a syringe, like not a drug syringe, but like a pointless syringe, like it's just a tube. I just refill it with ink. And this is my favorite brush for fine details. Anything larger, I have to use, my standard, Winsor Newton brushes. Even though they're not as good as they used to be. I got friends who swear by a Skoda. I've had a few of them. They're all right. But what's weird is they're swearing by a Skoda saying it's as good as Winsor Newton. It's not, because I got some Winsor Newtons still that I've just taken that good of care of them. But they are better than the Winsor Newtons that are coming out now. I want to do some dry brush, and then I can do lines on top of the dry brush to get a sense of value in the mass of his hair, because it's going to be wet. So I'm going to be using white paint to pull out some highlights here. So the ear would be here. So this is going to be coming out to there. If you do a slower line, there's no dry brush. It's just pure ink. I always wanted a big thing of hair there. So over the course of this story, because this is going to take, I mean, he has to, before the climax of this story, I'm not spoiling anything by telling this general aspect, by the climax of the story, his legs have to heal. And there's no magic involved in that here, even though it's a Conan fantasy story. The magic's in the monsters he's fighting. So I think we figured out that a really healthy person can heal a broken limb in about 3 months. We're talking Conan, so we're thinking that he's going to be here for at least 2 months. And he's not going to have a razor, so he's going to have two. By the end of this story, he's going to have 2 months growth of beard, which is going to be kind of awesome. I think technically the only time Conan has a beard is King Conan in previous comics. So not only are you beating the shit out of Conan in a way that I don't think's ever been done before, or giving him a beard in a chronologically off moment. Like this weird notion where Conan is always clean shaven, no matter how much on the road or on a soldier. Because I mean, medieval soldiers generally had beards because shaving was pretty tedious. And yeah, I'm gonna want that texture. I'm just gonna use the edge of the brush, and it's gonna leave a really, really coarse. So I'm working on This is 400 vellum Strathmore vellum in the 400 series. There we go. English works. So it has some tooth to it, and so I get some lovely, lovely dry brush effects with it. My preferred paper for comics right now is Eon. In fact, I've been proselytizing for Eon for a while. They just have the best paper. Their vellum's not as toothy as this, so I can't get quite the same level of dry brush effects. But it's just such a good high quality paper. I don't mind. And the smoother stuff allows like certain fine lines to land better. Doing that muck, I'm trying to figure out like how muck and shadow would look. I've never drawn that before. Excuse me. I'll just give it some like rough organic shape. So I'll go in with some line and maybe some rubber stamp after to differentiate it. How are we doing time wise? Oh, great. So you know what? I'm going to do at least one of those other heads. I'm not going to be able to finish this because as soon as I start bringing out the rubber stamps, and I could probably do one quick rubber stamp, but I'll probably want to go in white paint. Now, after I erase the pencil, I can see stuff that needs to be touched up. But that's better done off stream. There's also a part of me that wants to put a shadow across here, but then I have to be consistent. Like I have to put the shadow lower here, and as the head pops up, have it come up here and consistent there. But that might be too subtle a storytelling aspect. So I'm not gonna fuck with that. Let me grab a rubber stamp. I want to use the coarser one, so I'm going to be using this big rubber stamp. This is my big coarse. I keep forgetting. I got like 3 designed rubber stamps. They're ready. I just got to send them to the company that makes my rubber stamps, and I keep forgetting. They're not high demand needs in terms of the rubber stamps I got are more than enough for now. But I want to expand it and with some other textures, some more organic textures and some different shapes to allow me to get the dots in a more creative way, like having different textures in your Zipatone back in the 80s and 90s. So I use Post-it notes as really quick masks. I mean, I work in comics, man. I go through so much paper. So I reuse these as much as I can. But yeah, it'd be better for the environment if I didn't use all these. But the other option, of course, is Frisket, which is plastic, which is worse for the environment. There we go. So I got a nice big mask here from all of this. So I can just take this. Yeah, I'll do that. Load up the ink. This is archival black rubber stamp ink. So it's not dye. It's an actual ink. And actually dries a little bit of texture on plate paper or like smooth paper. Whenever I hammer, this thing goes flying. So let me put this aside. Here we go. Immediately just darkens that area. Just subtly. Adds texture and value. It doesn't necessarily go all the way to the end because it's a rubber stamp with like really crude masks. But when I go back in this with a little bit of extra detail, a little bit of white paint effects and everything, this will just feel like this or different organic texture there. Oh, you know what? Damn it. Just realized I should have done this too. Here I am. I'm reusing the paper. So, a step in the environmental direction. Oh, by the way, one of the things I did yesterday when my son was over for my birthday, we watched The Wonder Boys. Now, I hope you guys have seen Wonder Boys, so this is not new news to you or anything, but Wonder Boys is one of my favorite movies. And to my mind, apart from Frances McDormand, who was so perfect in 7 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri, every actor in Wonder Boys did their best work of their career in Wonder Boys. It stars Michael Douglas, Robert Downey Jr., Tobey Maguire. Yeah, that's right. Ant-Man Sr. or Hank Pym, Spider-Man, and Iron Man are the 3 male leads in this. It's got Frances McDormand. It's got Rip Torn, who's passed away sadly. And so Rob McElhenney has, I think his first professional work was in Wonder Boys, playing one of the students. But he's barely in it. They cut most of his role out of the movie because they have to. It's just easily one of my favorite movies, and Brendan loved it. So so let me just put a little bit of. I mean, the area is near black, but as soon as I add a little bit of texture to it, you might be able to see as soon as I'm done. Oh, thank you, Zug Zug. King Conan in the comics, that's how they differentiated King Conan from regular Conan, as I recall it. And the paperbacks, the pastiches that came out when Elsprague de Camp used to be involved in Conan, they gave King Conan a beard. I don't know if he's described as having a beard as Phoenix on the Blade, which is essentially the first official Conan story. Even though it's originally a Cull story, but Conan and Howard reusing stuff. I'm gonna put some other. I'm just scribbling in some extra tone value to break up the fact so it doesn't look like hair here. I should probably do this with a brush, just to diagonalize a bit. Yeah, here, I'll use this just to break up those vertical lines showing through. I'll go darker there, and then there we go. Yeah, so that's going into shadow. I have a whole bunch of tricks to make this hair look realistic because right now it's just a dark value vertical lines, and I guess it looks like it reads like hair now, but there's some things I want to make it pop more like hair should. And I think I'm going to go solid black up here on the top edge of the panel. Honestly, I can be really messy going around here because there's a big black tree that's going to be right there. So I don't have to be clean there. I can be sloppy right at that corner. Actually, I can be sloppy all the way through there and all the way through there because that's another big tree. And it's going to be all organic stuff like ground with grass, weeds, bracken, all growing at the bottom of this little crater. Yeah. Oh, there's one other thing I wanted to do. And let me. I want to put some extra lines merging in with the wet hair falling across his face. Because wet hair just does that weird shit. Plus, you put thin lines with the groups. Somehow, it just makes it work better. And let's make that a little bit darker going up into here. All right, hang on, let me see here. No turtle. Like, is this a turtle having sex? Because they go. The scariest thing ever is videos of turtles having sex. Thank you, Daniel. As I understand, it's a 6-issue miniseries, so I don't know if I'm going to be able to do more than one story for it. I would love to do another big black and white story. I would like to. I'd love Savage Sword to be so successful that Heroic goes, yeah, let's do this bi-monthly until sales tank and just get the best possible people. But I think that's unlikely. More likely is they'll be able to come back for an issue or two, like maybe a 2-part story in the regular series, which would also be kind of hot because it's like I get to draw Conan the Barbarian. Savage Sword is different to me. It has a different compartment in my head than the comic book. And the standard on the comic book is so freaking high. I'd love to see what I could do in a 2-part story for that series. That would be wonderful. Let me throw a little bit more schmutz here. He crawled through the mud. He was buried alive at the start of this. If you haven't watched the earlier Conan videos where I took forever to ink one page on streams, it was Conan. He just emerged from being buried alive, crawling through a graveyard in a massive rainstorm. All right, so that panel's done. Yeah, let me do at least that, and maybe that one. These are 2 solid black panels, and then that I might do. I'll save that for next week, I think. Yeah, because then I'll spend the whole. You'll already have this stuff to look at, and I can just let it sit at the bottom of the my drawing table, and I can just ink all these trees. The rain's letting up in this panel, so I got to figure out a way to actually still imply that it's raining, but it's getting lighter. So there's going to be a lot of like shadow side of the trees. This is going to be lighter than a lot of stuff in here. I might end up figuring a way to like just literally cover almost everything here with rubber stamp texture. This would have been like full sheets of Zipatone back in the day. Just gotta get that stubble across a little bit better. But yeah, so this is all right. So let me get keep tweaking on the panel that's done. Something else is here. No, pit pens are very delicate. Pit pens are very delicate. You're absolutely right. You're talking about Wills Portasio? I hope I pronounced that correctly. Wow. Yeah, I would have loved to have art lessons from Wills. Yeah, sometimes life sucks and you just got to put the drawing aside. Yeah, bearded Conan, it's going to be 2 months growth. There's part of me that was tempted, like, shave my beard and then track it over 2 months, like how much it grows back. Thanks for the birthday wishes, Zug Zug. And Nolan, I'm happy you like my turtle impression. All right, so let's get this head done. See, this is very sketchy. Back in the day, oh God, I probably have some somewhere. When I was just penciling, I'd pencil everything so freaking tight. The idea being, what I was told to do is inker proof my pencils. And I think that's incredibly insulting because so many inkers are just better at putting that line down than the penciler would be. I'd see a lot of pencilers who'd draw these lines in pencil and it like carve them into the page. And the inker would be like, okay, well, that's not the line you want to use here. It looks fine in pencils, but it's going to reproduce like crap. But worry up his brow a bit. Because I mean, he really has the shit kicked out of him. But as I realized, I had this moment where I was like, I drew the entire front grille of a transport truck rushing through, and I drew everything in tight pencils, like the grill work, the bugs on the grill, the character who's being hit by the grill, everything super tight. But the thing is even then I was starting to move towards like a sketchier, looser style. But I drew everything like exactly how I was going to ink it. And then when I was inking it, I kind of went, why the hell did I spend so much time drawing this when I'm doing the exact same thing in pen and ink? I can understand, if I was just starting out and I'm mistake prone, you kind of want to like minimize your errors by just planning out your pencils that tightly. But then I realized there's just so much stuff I know how to draw it in ink. So I'll do these really, really loose sketches. I also think, you know what? I think that was around the time someone gave me, I don't know why they gave it to me, but they gave me a little stack of Bill Sienkiewicz pencils from Moon Knight. He had them, he was throwing them away. And I said, oh, wow, I'd love to see those. So he actually gifted them to me because he was throwing them away. And they were barely there. They were like, he designed the page. He drew a few things tight that, perspective wise, they need to be done tight. But everything else is like, I already know how to draw this body. So I'm just going to like, here's the shape of the body. I'm just going to draw the details in. And I kind of went, well, Bill's one of my idols. So it was a pretty easy sell. I went, if Bill's doing that, maybe I got to do that. And I realized it made my work a little more spontaneous, a little more energetic. Finishing the drawing in ink. There was, I also ran into, I just came to my head, Walt Simonson, back when he was doing Thor, he did an interview about his work process and how he do these really, really loose layouts. And he'd light box him. He'd use an autograph, I think, or Lucy. I remember in college we had one. They called it the Lucy. It might have been the Lucograph. It was, I'll do a quick drawing. So you'd have a flat table surface. And this is where you would be doing your, not light box, but drawing. And there'd be a clamp on this part of the table. It'd be a thick clamp because it's holding a big piece of stuff. And there's a lot of weight underneath it. And there'd be a bar. I'm trying to remember. I think it was a thick bar too. Going up like that. And on that was a projector. It's like a big, probably going to draw a whole bunch of the details wrong. Controls were here. There's all this venting because it had all this powerful lights in it. So you'd put your rough image in this. So this would lift up. You put your artwork in here, and there'd be a lens here, and it would project your drawing here. Oh, that was a bad line. So it projected here, and you just trace it off here. So Walt would put his I think print size layouts in here. He'd do those comparatively tight for layouts. And then as he's doing this, he'd transfer it, make corrections as he is transferring it from the Lucy. And then when he was inking it, I think he did tighter work when other people were inking him, like Terry Austin and all those other people. He would just basically finish from this. He'd literally finish inking on those lucid layouts. So with that in mind, I kind of went, you know what? If all the guys I love and inspire me are doing looser work at the start of it, maybe I learned that lesson too. And weirdly, I think my drawings improved uh, when I shifted to that approach. There's something very, very different. And when I was teaching, I recommend my students working in their sketchbook to draw only in ink. And the reason for that is because when you're drawing in ink, you have to get over making mistakes. You just have to. You just have to keep drawing. If you draw in pencil, you make a mistake. Young artists are always going to have that impulse to grab an eraser and fix it. And if it's a sketchbook, why the hell are you fixing it in a sketchbook? That's where you're supposed. It's supposed to be the safe place for all your mistakes and bad thoughts, um, and things you shouldn't draw. And and it's really good. The more you draw straight in ink, the better your drawing just becomes. It just becomes better drawing, doing a lot of drawing. But then if you're planning, turtle sounds. Oh my god, yeah. If you're planning to do your pencils to the level you need them for your work, and then go at the ink. Not advocating people like just completely stop penciling and everything, but I find that once you get to a certain level of drawing, abandoning doing everything twice, it's good time-wise, time management. That means your work's getting done faster. But also you're just going to get more confident with your line and everything generally improves the more you're not afraid of mark making. So yeah, if you're sketching, really recommend get a pen you like drawing with the most. It can be a cheap pen, can be an expensive pen, but get the pen you enjoy drawing with the most, and just leave the pencils aside for a while. Like give yourself a challenge. This sketchbook is only going to be ink. This sketchbook's only going to be I'm going to draw with watercolor pencil and keep an aqua brush with me, and maybe a colored pencil, like a dark colored pencil, like choose like a reddish orange watercolor pencil. Do your initial drawing, do a little bit of watercolor effects, let it dry, do something else, come back to it when it's dry, and then take, say, a ultramarine blue colored pencil, like the wax ones, and go over it. And you can do value, you can do tonal drawing, you can do line work, and it'll sit on top of the watercolor you just did. And it becomes a beautiful little sketch, but they're all mediums that you have to roll with the results you get. And they'll give you different results. And doing it that way, suddenly you're improving your drawing and your painting. So this and more art tips will continue to spill out of my mouth as I go forward drawing like this. Yeah, he looks pretty zonked there, doesn't he? He's like, ugh. It's not every day you get buried alive. I'll do a shadow there. There we go. Okay, so it'll only take me 50 minutes. So you know what? I'm gonna do this head too, and the little finishes with white paint and extra fine lines I'll do off stream. I'll have that. I'll probably also fill in the blacks here, and then I'll have the rest of this ready to go for next Sunday, and then I can send it all to my editor. Um, Speaking of watercolor pencil, I just found something really weird in my studio. I don't remember getting them, so I didn't. I'm sure I didn't buy them. Lyra, which is an art Lyra, which is an art supply company. They do some really nice charcoal and um, colored pencils and just graphite and stuff. A lot of good stuff to work with. I'm going to use the dry brush of this marker to kind of mimic the value that I got there in the bigger panel. It doesn't have to be clean because it's all muddy and rocky and stuff. God, he looks completely beat up. Let's grab the 1. That's the 5. Do I want to use the 5 for that? No. Maybe let me try it. I have the 1 in hand, but let me try it with the 5 because it's so fine here. A good crosshatch will give you the simulation of stubble. And I can pull it right into the shadow side of his face and have it come down. Yeah, that worked. Okay, yeah, so the 005 was good for this. Also give Conan chest hair because, people have chest hair. I can simulate the hair really, really well with the 005. But I got to move the paper angle so I can get the curve of the growth pattern of the chest hair. You guys remember how John Byrne used to do body hair? That was so weird. Even as a kid, when I was just learning and I didn't know shit, I remember looking at how he drew body hair in Wolverine, and it was just weird, kind of how did he do it? I don't have any of his work on hand right here. So he did. That's it. Let me use the 03 so you can see it. Where did I put it? God, I misplace everything. I swear half my videos are me going, where did I put that? There it is. Fell behind the marker. He'd do these hairs like this on the body. And it was so. I looked at it and I went, oh, that's like Popeye level cartooning. It struck me as so weird that you draw everything else so well, but he did this terrible, terrible body hair drawing. There you go. I want a little bit more of that hair coming down. I'm going to do more of the hair after I go offline. But I don't want to forget. I don't want to end up scanning it and go, oh shit, I didn't do that. There we go. You know what? I'm going to let that. Again, I want that edge to completely disappear. If I'm consistent with the edge disappearing, if the edge of the head disappears in the shadow here and it disappears here, the reader gets it. If it just happens once and it doesn't happen again, then there's a chance that the reader might go, what the hell happened? What happened? Yeah, he looks pretty beat. Oh my God, his kid drawings. Yeah, I remember I didn't think it, I loved his drawings, but sometimes they reproduce so sketchily and so much of the pencil disappeared. You could see, he lived here, and I think at one point either him or one of his friends showed me pencils that he'd sent in the Dark Horse, and sometimes their scans were terrible. They lost a ton of his art. Yeah, but Byrne's kid drawings, oh my God, they all look like Tyrion Lannister. That was that would have been kind of funny if Tyrion was around the time Byrne was drawing kids, because I know someone would have made that joke. See, the weird thing is I'm a fan of Byrne from when I was a kid. You can't I don't like how he comports himself online. I think there's a lot of problematic things he's said and done over the years. But when I was a kid and I loved his work, I loved his work. I'm not gonna you know you know be that kind of guy who says just because I'm not a fan of anything he's doing now, suddenly I was never a fan. I was a huge fan of his work. I loved his Hulk. I thought he drew the best Hulk at the time. No one else drew a Hulk that felt like it was muscles and power. I like Sal Buscema, and no, not Sal Buscema. I'm drawing. Oh god, I'm blanking on like probably the artist who did the longest run on the Hulk. Um, oh, I like Rog 2000, I think it was. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's like John Byrne. I mean, there's things that every person has stuff, and in my experience, comic people, a lot of people who got into comics from a comic fandom aspect, like they drew comics because they just wanted to be Jack Kirby, um, as opposed to people who came to comics because they had stories they wanted to tell on their own. There's generally something wrong with everyone who makes life decisions based on that level of nostalgia. To my mind, um, I think it's like I love comic readers, comic retailers who love comics, and they always love comics. And I think that's fair, but I don't think that's a good reason to become a comics retailer. I think you should make the decision to become a comics retailer because you think you'd be really really good at selling comics. That's my take on that. I've seen over God the last 40 years. I've seen so many really really good people who loved comics and they opened a comic shop, but they were terrible at running the business. And one of the things anyone who's been around for any length of time around comics knows that there's a lot of ups and downs in it. It's a nostalgia driven business for the most part in terms of comic shops, and those are things that they collapse when the economy gets hit hard. People stop spending their money on nostalgia. They spend it on things like food. And God, I'm really babbling about comics. I shouldn't talk about comics because they have it hard enough as it is. To have I've worked with comic retailers at different times. There was like a comic shop in Winnipeg I did some work with, so I have some experience in a shop, but I've never owned my own shop, so I should probably not get too hard on that. But yeah, but I find that the comics writers and artists who are fans first, creative second, there is something wrong with them, and I think John Byrne falls into that category. Um, I really feel he's a Jack Kirby, Bernie Wrightson, Roy Thomas fan before being an artist and writer. I mean, to my mind, if you're not constantly trying to improve your work and have it grow in new directions, you're already dead as an artist. And John Byrne's style hasn't changed since late 80s. I mean, he kind of like figured out his style and he stuck with it. I honestly, as much as I love Jim Lee's work, I think he's pretty close to falling into that zone. He hasn't done anything new in decades. Whereas you look at Mark Silvestri, I mean, I flopped around that amazing black and white edition of Mark Silvestri's Batman Joker, and Silvestri's way older than Jim Lee. He's been doing comics way longer than Jim Lee, and here he is, still within the framework of who he is as an artist, doing new things. And I think that's admirable, and that should be the goal of every artist working. It's like I don't want. I think the work I'll be doing in 10 if I'm lucky enough, 20 years, will be recognizable as mine. But I hope I grow and try and do new things and develop. Now, a lot of people don't like what Mike Mignola's doing now. I love it. His deep embrace of the graphic nature of what his work's doing is just so astounding to see. I mean, his layouts and his compositions have always been, spotless, without peer. He's easily one of the best designers of comic pages in the industry. I would say that he and Howard Chaykin lay out a page better than anyone alive. But a lot of people don't like that really visceral, almost not there drawing that he's doing now. And I love it because what he's doing is he's stripping away the surface to show us the core of it. Because I think his comics read better now than, say, 20 years ago. But they're not as pretty. That would be the word I'd use, I think. They're not as pretty because there was a certain prettiness to his earlier. I want that there. Sorry, I have to, because he's kind of getting up, so I want his neck to show a little strain. There we go. Yeah. Yeah. So I want to be an old man doing interesting things. Ow. I'm almost done. I'm just going to do a little bit of chest hair here, a little bit more work in the hair, and a little bit of razor stubble on his jaw, and then I'm done for the night. I usually only do about an hour every Sunday, but it's every Sunday. I've not missed one since I started this up. I think was it June or July 4th? God, I forgot. Hang on. It's still open. Who needs a memory when you got computers? June 4th. Sorry, June 4th. Yeah, I got an unbroken streak of Sunday streams since June 4th. So I'm quite happy with how that's going. I'm actually feeling a little bit under the weather just in terms of fatigue right now, because I've been putting in like stupid long hours and I've been fighting off a little bit of insomnia. But yeah, so next Sunday I'm going to be finishing this page. So Jim, if you want to see a whole stream next Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern time, you will have me right here doing this big panel, top of the page here. Can you see that? There we go. So it's Conan completely collapsed in this crater with all these trees growing in it, like a crater in the middle of a forest. All right, let's get the brush. Still have that dark there, so I'm going to put that dark there, drop it down a bit. Kind of looking forward to when I'm actually like doing more creator own stuff. I'll probably do some of my witch pages on stream for the upcoming witch project as I get the stories ready to serialize on my Patreon. I've only got like 2 pages of the first story done. It like sucks. I've just been so busy right now, like playing catch up. I did my mini print for my Patreon supporters late, so I completely forgot to send them out to get printed this week. Gotta give myself a reminder for next week to do that. Use the 3 for the initial. So I got some hair coming over there. Yeah. Yeah. Chicken is very special. I haven't seen Capullo's animated stuff. Yeah, it's I was like a couple years ago, Mike started making noises about retiring, and then he just kept working. But at a slightly slower pace, and he's doing all these new things that are not Hellboy for himself to do. Apparently, he's got a graphic novel coming out soon. I really want to see that. That's what it looks like. Really, every once in a while, I see a little John Severin, who was one of my favorite artists at Cracked magazine. If you guys remember that magazine, I think there's some of that in my work, not intentionally, but I just think because I loved his work so much when I was a kid. We did a little bit of heavier work in the chest hair to make it pop a little bit more. I know why artists generally stay away from drawing chest hair, but I just find it looks weird when you have like everyone's hairless. Not a fan of like completely hairless dudes in my comics, my regular comics. I get the hair down into his face like in the bottom panel. I'll do some white paint on top of that. There we go. All right. See what I missed. Yeah. Yeah, EC and Time Lord was amazing. I got a couple of those EC collections. His Cull stuff was great. I can always recognize his hatch lines. Yes. His rendering, even I think he was inked by Marie a few times, and it was just beautiful work. All right, so I got 3 panels done tonight, so that's pretty awesome. This panel is going to take a long time. I might actually cheat and do everything that's under here before next session. Get all that done, so I can just have the page down lower and the camera focus on the upper level next Sunday. All right, so we're done for tonight. Again, next Sunday, 7 p.m. Eastern time, I will be streaming again, barring some sort of global catastrophe or health emergency. I'll probably, I'm not expecting any surprise things to share with you like the art books. So I might just be all inking. But in the meantime, if you guys think of any questions, anything you want me to demonstrate, any technique or specific thing about making comics you want me to talk about, I'm more than happy to dedicate whole sessions to technique questions, process, anatomy, drawing from memory or imagination, those things. That's what I see as the benefit of the weekly contact with people who want the information I have, or they want to see how I produce the work. All right, guys, you have a great week, and I hope I see you all next Sunday night. Bye.